Namaskaram. It's my pleasure to have Professor M D Nalapat with me today as we discuss a very important evolving new situation. India says that the United States doesn't want to export some of the agreed to raw materials towards manufacturing of vaccine by Serum Institute. Perhaps there are other institutes also now who are facing this difficulty. Now, a lot of news has been flying back and forth. And to sift the grain from the chaff, I have with me Professor M D Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, always a pleasure to have you on our channel, sir, and namaskaram.
Thank you, Sree.
So rid us this puzzle. What really happened? Perhaps you can take it back a little bit because US has been saying that first we need to make sure we're vaccinated before we can help others. At the same time, I see that US is giving Pfizer vaccines to Japan and perhaps to other countries also. And this recent thing where the Indian companies are saying that they're not getting raw materials, what exactly is going on, sir, in your opinion, and how do we get out of this situation? Because lives are going fast.
Sree, let's be honest, Big Pharma, whether it's in North America, whether it's in Europe, frankly, millions of people have died. They've lost their lives unnecessarily because the drugs have simply been unaffordable. You have even today some diseases. Fortunately, most of them are very rare, in which you need very targeted kind of drugs. Now, they are produced by Big Pharma in the United States or Europe, and they essentially the cost is so much that people can't afford them. And as a consequence, the patients die. The hospitals are completely helpless. So this has been going on for decades now. This actual, if I may say so, I would say this cold-blooded murder of millions of underprivileged people across the world. You had, George W. Bush coming in and finally agreeing that India had to be the source for the therapeutics that he needed to fight the AIDS epidemic in Africa. He found that American citizens were traveling to Africa. I mean, some people from Africa were going to the United States, and you just couldn't protect the United States unless you could protect Africa. Well, he tried to do that through the pharma companies in the United States. He failed. I mean, it would have bankrupted the United States many times over. And finally, he had to turn to India, with the consequence that today about 90% of the therapeutics that are being used in the treatment of HIV/AIDS comes from India. Now, pharma companies in the United States have now latched on to vaccines as the next big money maker, not the next big lifesaver. I mean, that's a wonderful way of looking at things. No, the next big money maker for themselves, for their large shareholders, for their managers, for everybody to, in that small group to feast at the table. Now, the strategy seems to be that even if a vaccine is about 20% effective, like, for example, you have after decades of effort, I mean, Anthony Fauci and various others, I must say the Gates Foundation, Bill Gates has spent an enormous amount of money on vaccines. And I do commend him for the fact that he has put so much of his own personal money in public causes. Now, in the case of vaccines, he has not been very successful in the vaccines, for example, on malaria, on AIDS, not at all. On malaria, now they have a vaccine which is between 20 and 30% effective according to them. And they're already using that vaccine in hundreds of thousands of people. Well, 30% means 70% don't get any benefit at all. I'm not entirely sure that, I mean, but today they are now going ahead with that vaccine, which basically means the vaccine manufacturer is saying, even if only 10% of the people are in laboratory trials getting, or in field trials, getting the benefit of a vaccine, let's produce that vaccine, let's mass produce it, and just you give it to populations so at least 10% can take the benefit. Essentially, they're now looking at vaccines as the next El Dorado. And why? Because the El Dorado of pharmaceuticals has been monopolized by India, by Indian companies. They monopolized it simply by high quality and low cost. They're not monopolized it by trying to block the market, as the Europeans have been doing, the Americans have been doing in the case of Indian pharma. They've done it by low cost, high quality therapeutics that are now in use across the world. You had a very a hugely successful film made in China about an anti-cancer drug from India, but the Chinese government, of course, banned because they kept desperately trying to reproduce it in China, and and they were failing. And with every month that they failed, more and more people in China died of cancer. And there was a frantic effort to try and somehow smuggle that drug into China from India. People would visit China. Their friends in China would say, "Please, please bring this drug with you if you can. Please take a few vials of it because some of our friends are dying and they need that drug." Well, this is the situation. The vaccine manufacturer, the pharma companies say, okay, the Indians have got into this therapeutics. Now they are muscling into vaccines as well. Horrible. Where are we going to get our billions of dollars from? Where are we going to get our corporate jets from? Where are we going to get our 10, 20, 30 million dollar bonuses from if the Indians start getting into the vaccine market as well? So they want to block India in the vaccine market. And I'm sorry to say, one US president built a Democratic Party. I'm not talking about the Republicans. The Republicans supposed to be elitist. The Democrats supposed to be for the people. Well, Bill Clinton was completely in the pocket of Big Pharma. Barack Obama, who was extremely eloquent in his idealism, completely in the pockets of Big Pharma. And both Clinton and Barack Obama worked, if I may say so, I won't say ceaselessly, I'll say mercilessly, to try and throttle the pharma industry in India so that Big Pharma can get additional profit and the people who funded them can make more money out of the misery of the human population. So now what's happening is the vaccine manufacturers in the United States, possibly through the Clinton and Obama lobbies. I would say I think Joe Biden is a good human being. He is a good believing Christian. And frankly, I'd like to say, I don't think he's a corrupt man. I think his son, frankly, seems to have accepted money from any source that gives it. Well, I mean, possibly put that down to inexperience or whatever. But he himself, from all that I've heard, he's an exceptionally honest man. I don't believe he's in the pocket of Big Pharma. But he is reliant on the Clinton and Obama lobbies, and they must be pushing him into this absurd step. Why is it absurd? It's absurd for the simple reason you can't protect the United States against coronavirus unless you protect the world against coronavirus. You can't have a situation in which you're hermetically sealed from the rest of the world. It doesn't happen that way. You know, it'll come to some country near you, it'll come to you, you get it. The only way to prevent it is by the entire global community having a situation in which they're free of that. Look at malaria, for example. I mean, now they've got this miraculous 20% of vaccine. Well, India, in so many districts, there have been no malaria cases reported for years and years. No vaccines. It's therapeutics. The fact is that today, vaccines are the next big El Dorado for Big Pharma in the US and Europe. And they don't want India muscling in on the party and preventing them from the tens of billions of profit they want to make out of the tens of millions of human beings who are going to suffer as a consequence of their policies. I would say that, President Biden, I mean, this is Trumpism at its worst, frankly. Trump said, I mean, my family, my friends, and those parts of my country that I'm for, forget the other parts, they don't matter to me. That and only that counts. Well, Biden is now basically saying the poor don't matter, including the poor in his own country, because this pandemic hits the poor most of all in terms of the fact that the economic impact, in terms of the economic impact they've already suffered in lockdown, etc. So look at the way, for example, therapeutics have worked in the case of malaria. You have a deadly disease that has been brought under substantial control entirely by therapeutics. So now the drug companies are now getting into the vaccine bandwagon saying, no, you have to vaccinate the whole world against malaria. You have to vaccinate the whole world against the common cold. You'll have to vaccinate the whole world against, diphtheria. I mean, look, it's a good idea to go in for some vaccines, but the reality is the gold standard is therapeutics, and most of these diseases have been controlled entirely by therapeutics. But therapeutics, you have this problem of India, therapeutics companies in India. And although I'm sorry to say that the influence of big pharma lobby of Europe and America and the influence of China, which is not a pharma influence, is basically to kneecap India wherever it can, has resulted in several individuals in the system in India being in the pay of these people. I mean, look at the situation that we are facing in India now. It's a tragic situation that was completely avoidable. For so many months, we could have produced what now, under Prime Minister Modi's prodding, is now on the way to being produced. Oxygen, therapeutics, thanks to Prime Minister Modi getting in the act a few weeks ago, all this is now speeding up. It could have speeded up 10 months ago. Why didn't it speed up? I mean, let's be honest. Because the Prime Minister was busy with election politics, he was busy in Bengal, he was busy in other places. I have written several times, I've said, I think in your program also, Narendra Modi was elected to be Prime Minister of India, not to be campaigner in chief for the BJP. It doesn't matter if the BJP loses every state in India, if he has an outstanding central administration, if he runs that. Believe me, the BJP is then not going to lose any state in India. If that's the best way of actually the BJP becoming what the Congress was in the 1950s, outstanding administration of the kind that Modi is capable of. But he's not given a chance. I'm happy he's not been asked to campaign in panchayat elections. I'm happy he's not been asked to campaign in university union elections. But he's been asked to campaign left, right, and center, as though he was the president of the BJP. And you have senior ministers campaigning also, as though they don't have important departments to run. And is it any wonder that the bureaucrats in these departments are either out of, lack of expertise, which is common, or because a few of them have fallen prey to malign influences from outside? Well, you had this terrible neglect of the situation. So today, we are gasping for oxygen because the logistics is not there. We are gasping for therapeutics because enough therapeutics is not there. And it's all because of bottlenecks and hurdles that have been created by the bureaucratic elements, which could be removed in a flash, and which, because of the Prime Minister coming into the picture, are being removed now. I'm very optimistic that by the middle of May, end of May, you're going to see a complete turnaround situation in India. It's been done by Prime Minister Modi. This never need have happened. So I'd like to say it's very likely that some of these, if I may say so, some of these people who are profiting out of the death and misery of citizens globally in the United States, Europe, and of course a certain country that wants to kneecap us, along with another country to our west. Both these countries are well known. They are, in a sense, I would like to say, they are hurting the American people. Why? Because they are preventing India from ensuring that effective and cheap vaccines, much lower than the vaccines now on offer, are going to be available, which are more effective than the vaccines now on offer. And that is what is behind this clandestine effort by the Obama crowd, by the Clinton crowd on Biden to stop these essential materials. It will have no impact, I can tell you, on vaccine production in the US. The US system does not need 3/4 of the material that's now under embargo. If India gets that, the whole world can be vaccinated. So what Joe Biden is doing, frankly, I'm sorry to say, he is following a path which I can only describe as a path which is completely bereft of humanity. and humanity for his own people in the poor. Biden and his party can get a majority in the Senate and the House, of course, retain and improve the majority. Nancy Pelosi is no longer going to be there in 2022. Pelosi is a very wealthy lady, and she, like Clinton, and frankly, like Obama, to a much to a smaller extent than Clinton. I mean, she looks after her own people. Let's be honest. But now she's not going to be there. Senate, the Democrats can come back if Biden succeeds in his policy of trying to help the poor. And if he cannot succeed in that policy unless the poor are kept healthy, they cannot be kept healthy if he relies on big pharma. He has to use therapeutics and vaccines from India. So essentially, Joe Biden is shooting at the feet of the poor American people themselves by this very ill advised move to block vaccines to India.
Professor Nalapat, is it vaccines or raw materials that are being blocked to be sent to India?
Raw material for the but with
Raw
the raw
materials,
material,
right.
how do you produce the vaccine?
Today, our great president said that vaccines only for the US, but raw materials, there is no ban. So why is the United States doing the ban, in your opinion? Is it like the government embargo, or is it a particular company?
Look, I mean, frankly, those raw materials are not coming. Chinese have also blocked a lot of the raw materials coming from them for reasons that you very well know. They are very unhappy at India's vaccine diplomacy. I believe, Sree, that our government made a big mistake in going entirely through this Covaxin facility of the WHO. This Covaxin facility means that 80% of the vaccines that are being distributed under Covaxin have come from India, and 0% of the credit has gone to India. 100% of the credit has gone to WHO and the institutions that are now affiliated with WHO in basically, disseminating Indian vaccines without even, I mean, the country is getting absolutely no goodwill as a consequence of the immense sacrifice it has made by keeping this entire Covaxin thing going, by supplying so much of the vaccines. We should have done it individually as a country. Indian vaccines by India. Forget the WHO. It's a mess. Forget that Covaxin thing. Do it individually. But of course, we have this tremendous problem in India that we always look at the world. Good if you look at the world, but please look at the poor of the world. Don't look at the governments of the world. Don't look at the elites of the world and the people who are coming and meeting you and getting interviews and appointments with you. These are elites. They're only concerned about themselves, and that's why I'm being very clear, Sree, that that Biden is probably informed, and as a consequence of that, what is happening is that his own country is going to be the loser on this matter. The Indian therapeutics worked in the case of AIDS, it's worked in the case of malaria, but the big pharma lobby in the United States and Europe is now terrified that the El Dorado that they have been tom-tomming for the last 1.5 years, the El Dorado of vaccines, will now again be taken away by the Indians. Why? Low cost, high quality. And again, I'd like to say, the government of India needs to investigate who are the officials who have been putting blocks on new vaccine manufacturers coming to India, putting regulatory issues regarding vaccines already being under process in India. That is also happening. And I think Prime Minister Modi needs to identify these moles of big pharma, these moles of China and Pakistan inside the governance system and hold them to account.
Couple of observations, Professor Nalapat. One is that the United States today and EU a couple of days back have approved J&J subject to some conditions. And there is no reason why India cannot implement the same rule and use it in a selective manner, because it's a single shot vaccine, effectiveness slightly less than Pfizer and Moderna, but still just as good. But it's a single shot. It has its own advantages. I think India should pursue that. But in this specific thing, I'm really aghast that President Biden is having a dual-forked approach. On the one side, he's got the borders open in the pretext of allowing parents who have been separated from their children to join, but everybody is coming in now. the gates are wide open. They're not even being tested for COVID. And on the other side, when there is a country that can actually take care of this problem for the world, they don't want to ship things that are already being paid for, I'm told. This is what Poonawalla has alleged, that he said, I've already paid for these things. Why are you not shipping them? So this is not right. And if it is the hand of pharma companies, come on, guys. For once, try and do what is good for the humanity. This is not right. And President Biden, Vice President Kamala Devi Harris, have you talked to your chitti lately? And Pramila Jaipal, what about your Didi? How is she doing? And then the other ones like Radha Krishnamurthy, Ro Khanna, you all have relatives back home. Is this how you want to treat them? Especially and when India was sending 67 million vaccines to the whole world, when they had them in their hand, when before the onset of this huge second wave of corona. So they have done their part of altruism. For God's sake, show some humanity. I think this is not right. And I'm going to make sure that this reaches the hands of some of the congressional persons. They do listen to our videos, Professor Nalapat, and I know you have your own following. Let's hope that some good comes out of it. But this is not cricket, gentlemen. Cricket means fair.
Sree,
Sorry, go ahead.
Sree, it's neither cricket nor baseball. India and the United States are partners together in many activities, and partners protect each other. They look after each other's back. Let's put it that way. And this if the ramping up of vaccine production in India takes place, well, it's going to be good for the United States. It's going to be good for the world. And I can tell you very clearly, President Biden is being misinformed, I think. To say that there is no bar, for some, there is a bar. Let's be honest. Our vaccine manufacturers are just not getting the ingredients they need, neither from China, which is understandable, or from the United States, which is incomprehensible. The Chinese want to knock Indian vaccine production, Indian pharma production, Indian car production, Indian any production out of this thing and come into India and produce and make the country completely dependent on them. They want the United States also to be in a similar situation of dependency. And unfortunately, Clinton and Obama, for God's sake, Scarborough Shoals in 2016, when China just grabs Scarborough Shoals, Mr. President Obama probably bit into a cookie or something, but he didn't do anything more than that. And from that time onwards, I believe the Philippines has lost confidence in the United States. Look, Joe Biden is rebuilding that confidence. He is doing a lot of things that are really commendable, and helping the poor through these huge stimuli are important and essential for a better, fairer America. But President Biden, you are harming your own people by blocking India from producing vaccines. On the contrary, help India, help the world, and help the poor in the United States. You can't go in the 1922 election, in the 2022 election, and say that you are for the poor of the United States when you're preventing them from the benefits of a safer world, a world made safe from a virus that has its origins in Wuhan, and frankly, from an institute that received a substantial amount of funding from the United States. I think that's a story that needs to be told. I hope one day it will be told. How gain of function research. What does that mean, Sree? It means bioweapons. What do you mean by gain of function? Make it more deadly. Make it more transmissible. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? And why would you want to pump tens of millions of dollars into doing that? And the gentleman who signed those chits, asking for that money to be transferred to China, he became the head of the WHO team that was investigating who's responsible. Obviously, he came up with the conclusion that the Wuhan laboratory is completely innocent. The very laboratory he and some others, I don't want to name them, they're all very powerful people, but I mean, they're all complicit in that. Someday in the United States, there will be a Senate hearing, there will be a House hearing into what happened at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and who all paid the money for what experiments. Because frankly, that it's a repeat of that now. It's a repeat of that callousness. It's a repeat of that ruthless pursuit of certain interests at the expense of general good that is now happening. I'm sure these same people are going to Biden and saying, don't give the vaccine to India. Don't give the vaccine to India. You know why? The vaccine material. Because they are in the pocket of Big Pharma. And I'm sorry to say they're also in the pocket of the other superpower. They've supported that other superpower. They've supported the institute. They've supported other things. They've supported WHO, which is basically, I mean, completely with that superpower. And they're with Big Pharma. And they hate India because India, especially under Narendra Modi, can be the antidote to this kind of poison of high prices that they are spreading across the world so that only the privileged few will be given access. Look, the Americans have 5 times the vaccines that they, regarding so far as population is concerned. Canadians have about 8 to 9 times. And still you're holding back? I don't understand it. Look, a lot of the blame for the current situation rests with the bureaucracy in India. But I can tell you going forward, a lot of the blame is going to be right on the conscience of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Wake up.
Thank you very much, Professor Nalapat. I hope saner minds prevail, and this is really, really sad. And thank you once again. Namaskar.